Welcome to Conversations. This is Scott Turner. Our guest today is Paul Otteson, who is SUNY ESF's webmaster, musician, social media maven, and general fount for interesting ideas on all things related to the web, technology, and media. Paul, welcome to Conversations.
Good to be here, Scott.
Good to have you. One of the interesting things that's been happening in media generally for the past 10 years, of course, is the wave of increasing bandwidth, ability to deliver content through the internet, and so with the so-called legacy media, things like newspapers, commercial television, radio with a fairly narrow bandwidth, they've had a great deal of control over the way that content has been delivered in the past. They've had virtually a monopoly on it, and all that's been overturned by the increased availability of bandwidth on the internet, and they've had some really interesting challenges trying to adapt their business model to these new realities. Now, academics are in a way sort of frustrated Broadway performers. That is, they also are involved in delivery of a show of some sort, information for consumption by consumers, and our business model has been to get students to pay thousands, tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to come sit in a room and have us talk to them. That's our model of content delivery. How do you see the internet doing that? Is it going to play out the same way that it's done for a lot of these traditionally thought of legacy media?
Absolutely. The model you talked about, the academic model, is in collapse. It's really just a matter of time frame. So if your view is 5 years out or 10 years out, it's possible and even reasonable to say that some of these traditions, academic traditions, will survive. But if you're looking 50 or 100 years out, there's just no way that it will be the same. It's economically unfeasible going forward.
Economically unfeasible generally, or do you think the economic feasibility is being driven, say, by other issues like higher levels of student debt, government underwritten debt, and those sorts of things? We've seen statistics that student loan debt has now exceeded $1 trillion for the first time in history, and is that what's mainly propping it up, or are there other forces that are keeping our traditional content delivery method in academia propped up?
Yeah, I'd say all of the above. Those, rather than keeping it propped up, I think those are the forces that ensure its decline and demise. But I'd like to look on the bright side of it. There's just so much opportunity with new ways of managing delivery of content and the engagement of students and experts going forward, and certainly just the pure economics of it are going to be essential to shaping that. But also the opportunity, the really exciting things that are possible in instruction and content delivery based on new technologies.
Yeah, we've certainly seen that in the news media with the rise of the so-called pajamas media. The bloggers supposedly sitting in their living rooms in their pajamas, pretending that they're newsmen. But it's been a very effective challenge to the legacy media. Is the role of the traditional professor? I mean, is that over? Are we going to be basically becoming a bunch of people in our pajamas trying to deliver content to students?
Well, I think you can really analyze the content and method of delivery in academia and see where things are going to migrate to digital modes much more quickly. I don't think there will ever be a way to replace human interaction directly, especially between student and teacher. I think that's an essential personal interaction that cannot be exceeded. But certainly that contact time can be steered much more effectively toward true interaction, true discourse, and also the field, lab, and studio, and centers of technology and other kinds of physical, brick and mortar kinds of realities will survive. But just the simple, learn this, listen to this, watch this, those kinds of one-way directing of content from teacher to student will be superseded by digital opportunities.
One of the interesting things that's happened in this transition in more traditional legacy media content systems like newspapers and television is a certain amount of institutional inertia that has stood in the way of these legacy providers to adopting these kinds of new technologies and new ways of delivering content to their customers. We've seen it play out to some degree in the fight between music producers, music consumers, and the Record Industry Association about effective ways of delivering music over the internet. And academia is a place that's steeped in tradition. Do you see any hope for the future in enabling us to navigate through these what are bound to be stormy waters?
Sure. Well, I mean, here's where we get back to those economic drivers that make a huge difference. I mean, you can look at the rise of online education, higher education in America. You can look at the troubles that small private liberal arts colleges that are charging exceptional amounts of money are having getting students these days. So the economic drivers will have a huge impact on that. But again, I think it's really the opportunity, and it would be a younger generation that's been steeped in digital media, mobile devices, everything from Wikipedia to the Khan Academy to TED videos, places where different sized chunks of content can be distributed and consumed via many devices and many places much more effectively and much more interactively than they can in the traditional brick and mortar academic infrastructure. So change will come. It's just a matter of how fast.
One of the interesting issues in being a content provider is the extent to which you invest in creating content yourself versus being a bundler of content to send out to other people. And it seems to me that there's something like that going on in academia right now in our traditional model. The content bundlers essentially are instructors who use a existing textbook, something that's been written by someone else. They use materials, sometimes online materials that are provided and licensed as part of that textbook purchase. But then you have others who are actual content creators. They develop their own lesson plans. Textbooks aren't all that useful to them. Do you see something like that happening in academia? I mean, I'm just trying to navigate how this whole thing is going to shake out, because I think everyone is in agreement that we've got really stormy waters ahead. We've got the increasing student loan debt bubble, much of which is going into building the brick and mortar kinds of things, and we'll talk about that more in the third segment. But the way it's going to shake out, what's going to happen to the content creators versus the content bundlers? Which do you think is going to be the winning strategy in the future?
I think they'll have to coexist. I don't think that all academics, all experts, all teachers are cut out to be content creators. I think there's going to be a very strong continuing role for crafters of courses, assemblers of content, curriculum and pedagogical experts who will be masters of how to distribute and how to schedule and how to sequence that content for people. On the other hand, you're going to get people like yourself who are motivated toward and good at content creation, creating media, creating digital textbooks, constructing courses, and I think it will always need to be people of various skills, and so I think there's opportunities for all going forward.
When we come back after the break, we're going to be exploring more details on what some of these interesting opportunities for the future might be. We're back with Paul Otteson, and we're talking about the future of academia and the internet. So Paul, you mentioned that there are all kinds of interesting opportunities for how to deliver academic content in a new way. I'd like to get you to just expound and go as blue sky as you'd like on the kinds of possibilities that are out there so that we can grasp actually what is possible.
Well, working on the web as I do, what's become very evident to me is that you can take pretty much any kind of content from any source and deliver it in just about any way you can think of. Either to everything from a projection device in a lecture hall, to a laptop, to a smartphone, to digital signage, and just on and on. You can take media components, media and textual components, and assemble them a variety of ways, often on the fly. So it's very easy now, for example, to create a digital textbook for a course, simply by looking at your media assets, assembling them into some kind of a sequence, creating a digital textbook, making it available, again, through these digital devices. So I tend to think of content in terms of components or units or modules, and the assembly and delivery of those has been liberated. And so I think what you do then is you look at your course, your academic experience that you're trying to give a student, and those things which are smartly and wisely consumed, simply received by a student, those you direct to digital devices. And you focus then on instructor contact time being a matter of the value of assistance with working through problems, with discourse and discussion, and imaginative conversations and group process. And I think really the possibilities are endless in this direction.
So the thing you just described, of course, is very much like the Khan Academy model, and that's been in the news a lot lately. Can you fill us in more on just what the Khan Academy model is? What's involved? Give us some concrete examples.
I'm not an expert on the Khan Academy, but I know that if you go to the Khan Academy website, you can basically access thousands of lessons, of course components, of lectures and so forth, media assets that you can consume any way you want, or reuse to construct courses or other educational experiences for a variety of students, K-12 and higher ed. And so here's essentially a knowledge bank, a bank of knowledge media that you can assemble and distribute as you see fit. So for example, if I was talking to a middle school science teacher who wanted to teach something that they had no expertise in and or had no materials to instruct, that teacher, I might say, go to the Khan Academy, look into the subject, get the media you need, and get it to your kids via iPad or smartphone or school website or so forth. So that model of pulling in expertise and media components from around the world, really, and the Khan is just one example, to construct or create your course. I think that gets to what the essence of the Khan Academy.
Yeah, I've looked at the Khan Academy materials, and it seems to me that the key innovation there is to reverse the relationship between homework and class time, and what you're describing there really is taking what is normally done in class time, which is learn the concepts, repeat, lather, rinse, repeat, and so forth and so on until you finally have it, and turning that into student self-directed learning, and then that frees the classroom time for homework, basically, where kids have to grapple with a subject, they have to gain mastery of it,
yeah,
and those kinds of things. And it seems to me that approach is innovative, but it's very effective for some kinds of academic content delivery. It makes a lot of sense for mathematics, it makes a lot of sense for chemistry, a lot of sense for any subject matter that has a lot of foundational material that you just have to be able to master before you can go on to the next one. But how does it work for something that's maybe more nebulous, like teaching architecture or art appreciation or critical thinking?
Well, I think really it's easy to jump ahead and see the purity of the Khan Academy idea as a reversal, as as kind of two holistic areas that are swapped. But really, that misses the the beauty of it, which is that this can be constructed along a continuum. I mean, for the architectural student, it might be a matter of, watch this 10-minute piece by I.M. Pei about his work on a particular building, and then come back with that in mind for what we're going to do in class. It can be incremental, modular, and infinitely variable in its implementation. So it doesn't need to be a complete reversal. But maybe teaching 4th grade math, it is a complete reversal. Maybe teaching about termite mounds in South Africa, not so much. But you can, the point is that you can construct just with an infinite range of possibilities.
So we're going to get into this in more detail on the third segment, but they're all wonderful ideas, innovative ideas. You're the teacher in Syracuse, and how do you actually do it? And most importantly, how do you go from being basically a content bundler, which is what you are if you're relying on the Khan Academy TED lectures and those sorts of things, to being a true content creator? I mean, there are several humps that you have to get over. One is the hump of introducing faculty to new and powerful technology, and of course there's another hump which is institutional, which we'll get into in a little bit more detail later. But you have a classroom teacher. How do you get them to that point?
That's going to be as varied as the tools that they have to work with. I mean, the way I would look at it again is almost, what's your role? What can a teacher contribute by being a media creator? Almost everyone's going to carry their own area of expertise. Certainly everyone's going to carry their own range of experience. And those are the places to contribute media creation, I think. And rather than own the entirety of a course or a semester or a period of engagement with students, I think it's far better to think in terms of contributing what you can and then assembling from elsewhere where you can get better resources than you can create yourself. But again, it's the infrastructure of the course, the semester, the block of time, the brick and mortar building that really forces all of this. I mean, if you think out of the box completely, learning and teaching can become very diffuse and very flowing and fluid. And if you pull that infrastructure away, the possibilities truly are endless.
Possibilities are endless. I agree with that. But again, I'm trying to get the naive person who wants to get into this. What kind of toolkit do you give them to be able to do this? I mean, the obvious important toolkit is what's up here and what's here, but to get into that technology, what's the basic toolkit? 2 or 3 items, maybe 4 or 5 items they need to do that.
I think that the first thing is to look at your consumer. The consumer needs to be required to have a device and access through which they can consume media that's created. Secondly, I would say that there are a bunch of available tools. Certainly video, audio recording, podcasting, now digital textbook creation that are in addition to traditional documents and images and galleries and PowerPoints that can be generated. But really, I think if we turn the corner and insist that our students have mobile devices and at least are required to consume some of these things via devices that they have, we either give them or that they buy, and that becomes essential to the curriculum, then that's really the beginning point, I think, especially in K-12, but also in higher ed.
Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to delve more deeply into this integration of brick and mortar versus the ether in academia. We're back with Paul Otteson, and we're talking about digital media in education, especially academia. Now, I've had a lot of interactions with colleagues and about this new future, and there's a great deal of trepidation there. Some of it is due to simple inertia, which you expect in any kind of institution or any kind of person who's been doing this for a long time. But there's a real legitimate concern there as well, which I thought we would explore now. And of course, for the academic, you know, we've known how to teach for about 2.5 millennia now, since Socrates, and for us the ideal is Socrates in the olive grove with a bunch of students, you know, and the modern equivalent of that is exactly what our traditional business model has been: get students in a room where they can talk to us, and everyone who's taught and taught successfully knows how effective that model is. And the concern, of course, from my colleagues is that when you have all this wonderful diffuse learning, wonderful as it is, the students are going to go away. We're going to lose that human interaction. And we've seen some of that in the migration from traditional academic institutions to online things like Phoenix Academy, Khan Academy, those sorts of things. You know, how do you square that circle? You know, how do you assure?
Well, you don't assure.
Okay.
You know,
Right.
it's going to be really a matter of individuals. I mean, I think again, it's going to, you know, at this point, we take, typically in higher ed, we take people and we give them an infrastructure to plug them into for a sequence of years. And we give them an infrastructure of classrooms and course sequences and credits and so forth, and we march them through to give them a sheepskin and an arcane ceremony, and they have a degree. And somehow that's supposed to translate into their ensuing effectiveness and relevance and employability in a very strong way. And it just doesn't do so in any kind of universal sense. It prepares them in a highly variable way. And I think what should happen is that we accept that variability. Now, I don't believe for a second that there's any diminished value of or relevance for an academic, for a teacher, for a higher education teacher. Indeed, I think the opposite is true. I think that this actually raises the value of scholars who can have quality interactions with students. It also raises the value of those who can construct a good course or create media, as you've described. It raises the value of actual human beings and human contact. And so, in a way, it's an opportunity more than otherwise. I think really what has to fade in its restrictiveness is the infrastructure. This whole idea of the course, the semester, the 4-year sequence, the degree, those kinds of hard and fast, ancient infrastructural components of education that really are holding things back.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, having sat in, you know, enough faculty meetings where I've heard that we can't accept more students, you know, because we just can't fit them in somewhere. We have to make these very, very hard choices between this course or that course because we have to, you know, squeeze them all into a particular sequence. You know, that's a very, very real problem, but that's getting to institutional issues and of course, you know, if you look around most college campuses today, there's a tremendous capital building program going on. Syracuse University next door is doing it. We have, by last count, at least 2 new buildings going up right now and one that's been under construction. And I always wonder where that money's coming from. And of course, it's coming partly from student tuition, but it's also coming from basically student debt that's going in and financing this. So institutionally, we're going towards the bricks and mortar in a big way, and not giving a lot of thought really to how we're going to fill that with fees-paying students, and which is how we're going to survive institutionally. So it seems to me that what you're describing is that an academic institution, if they want to survive in the future, must go to being content creators. That is, being simple content bundlers is going to lead you towards a Phoenix model where you don't need infrastructure at all. You don't need face-to-face content. It seems to me that's the only way to go. Do you think that's right, or?
You know, that's not what I was trying to say directly, but I think it is right.
Yeah.
I think, you know, when it comes to intellectual property and institutional identity and the respect and the profiles of the academics in an institution, if you are creating content, creating media, and supplying the world and leading the world in these ways, then you are going to be a strong institution. And those that don't do that will not be able to charge the top dollar they're charging now, just to have people come in and experience assembled, subscribed content that's not being created there. I would like to say that I'm a great valuer of campuses, and I think there's actually a very oddball quality of life issue where we offer to people the chance to come to a campus and to be in an environment with other young people, and that it's great to work on a campus, it's great to visit a campus. Though I'm not against capital improvements, but I just think that the economic realities will drive many things, and if people are not paying $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year to go to small liberal arts private colleges, and some of those closed down, I would not be surprised.
It seems to me that our future is going to be in getting away from teaching students things, which can be done most effectively by the internet, versus providing an environment to grow minds, that is, getting back to the traditional liberal arts idea, which is an interesting irony. In the 30 seconds we have left, any thoughts that you might want to wrap up with? Or
just embrace it, understand it, make your best move in regards to what you understand about the changing landscape. Try to steer the institution, if you're an academic or a K-12 teacher, towards the future, and don't cling to things that are holding you back. Really, that's the essence of it.
Embrace the web. For Conversations, this is Scott Turner. Thank you, Paul Otteson, for an interesting conversation, and let's hope that the conversation continues. Good day.